Some women will say to me, oh, men I've known are selfish, and they very well may be selfish, or they don't care. If I get to talking with them a little bit, one thing I find is, I have to say it nicely to them, I say, I'm afraid you've given men the wrong impression. You've given these men the impression that you're stronger and tougher than you really are. When you never complain, or you're never weak, or you never have a bad day, he just assumes that's the norm. It's not the norm. You can't keep that up. So we're talking about the desire formula. And while I'd love to give everything into a brief formula, like, here's 12 parts and it works great. The problem with that is that no one can remember 12 parts. No, I mean, in the moment, it's hard to remember a bunch of stuff to do. So I don't want to give necessarily a bunch of steps on how to do everything. As much as what I like when I read a book or something is there may be 2 or 3 things that really stand out that I can apply. So take this with that in mind, is see what parts fit. But usually what you'll find is there's some aspects of this where it is not working out. So who am I for those that are new? So I'm Bob Grant. I'm a relationship coach, and I'm the best-selling author of The Woman Men Adore, The Attraction Factor. We have the Campfire Effect program. We're about to come up with something new, 6 weeks to secure a man for all the single ladies. But that's a little bit about who I am. Read the comments, get to know everyone, introduce yourself. Let's jump in. So the technical issue was we couldn't show the PowerPoint today. So instead today, we're going to have just me doing off the notes. So there's our formula. I'm going to break it down and give you 3 aspects of this. Number 1 is going to be understanding a man's need for independence. If you think of this another way, think of this in terms of this is his strength. So when men think about being independent, it can conjure up ideas that he just wants to be selfish, just wants to do things his way. And that can be the case at times. But for a man, when he thinks of independence, what he thinks of in terms of it's my responsibility. It's my job if we're lost to get us home. It's my job if there's a problem to figure out a solution. Because little boys growing up, if there was a bully or there was, people picking on them, little boys in general don't think in terms of who to turn to. It's like you or no one. I'm not saying that's always right. I'm not saying that's always the case, but in general, boys grow up with this. Some of this is just we have more testosterone, so we've got more energy to do stuff. Some of it's societal, but we're wired to think that way. And so when we think about independence, it's not so much that, I'm just independent, don't need anyone, as much as I have to figure out a way to do this. I can't really count on anyone. That's our default switch. And so as we overcome things, we accomplish stuff that builds up our self-esteem muscle. That makes us feel more stronger, more masculine. So our self-esteem is based on 2 things. Number 1, it's what we accomplish. The goals we achieve, the things we want to do, and 2, what we overcome. And this is how it plays in for you ladies. If you are accommodating or overly accommodating, if you are too easy for him to pursue you, if he takes you for granted, that's probably one of my worst fears, of being taken for granted. That actually, it isn't just that it's not good for you. It isn't just that that's a poor boundary. It's bad for him too. He will tell you, I want someone laid back. I go online sometimes and I see some of the men's forums. Women are so demanding. They're so entitled now. It depends on which forum I'm going on, especially the red pill stuff. Just, I want a woman laid back. Okay, I get all that, and that there is a grain of truth to that, in the sense of, sure, I can see how men would want that. But that's similar to someone saying, I want chocolate. Well, chocolate all the time just makes you sick. It isn't just that it's a good stuff for someone, it's that it makes him less than a man. So men value what they work for. Men value what they've achieved and accomplished. Again, not because we're trying to come up with some rule. That's in our DNA. So being accommodating to a man is bad. Rewarding a man for him investing in you is good. So early on in the first date, there's not a lot to reward because you don't know him. And what I find a lot of times is women like to reward. Women like to give awesome, fantastic, super. The timing is off. And let's just exaggerate this. So sleeping with a guy on the first date, that's a great reward for a wife to give a husband. Awesome reward. More of that, please. That's an awful reward to give a man for one date. For one date? He gets to sleep with you? And yes, I hear, but I want to. By all means, do as you wish. I'm telling you, you're rewarding him if you do this the wrong way. All he's going to do is have a date with you. Make it a great date too. Great dinner. It's getting in the way of his self-esteem, because his self-esteem is not just his own self-esteem. His self-esteem also relates to the way he views your relationship. So there's his own self-esteem, and there's the esteem he has of the relationship in general. So if the relationship in general starts off too fast, doesn't require much effort on his part, he has the idea or the illusion or the faulty belief, oh, this doesn't take much effort to get what I want. We're not trying to make it hard for the sake of hard, but I know that men value what they invest in. That's how they start thinking long term. And it doesn't mean your attitude is you're chiding him or that you're being mean or rude. It doesn't mean that. It means that you are measuring the amount of time. You're measuring how much you give and respond to him. Let's go to the second one, which is similar to this. He needs to choose you. Men value what they catch. This is more important than your beauty, more important than what you do for him. And it is one of the biggest foundations of desire. All of us have a tendency to want to give and offer what we like to give. If I'm an empathetic person, remember, under stress, I'm going to be really empathetic. I want to listen. If I'm someone that likes to fix things under stress, give me something to fix. That's normal. But universally, regardless of what a man's individual preferences are, no matter what he says, I'm asking you to focus in not just on what he says, but men in general with this. Men value after they pursued something. Men, all of us do, but men especially despise what comes easily. It can be really euphoric. It can be really intense. That is not desire. That's artificially being propped up. When I talk about desire, I'm talking about something deep-seated that's there even on good days and bad. A desire is there. Desire is not simply a feeling. A desire is something that transcends over time into devotion, into long-term commitment. We need it initially, but we need it to be built correctly, just like a foundation. So we don't have to make this like super serious. So we don't have to make this where it's, got to be a 4-step formula to do everything correctly. But it really has more to do with that desire that he has is built on the formula you set for him. The third thing, he needs to experience a woman's emotions. When he experiences her emotions, he begins to feel her soul. And I have women that talk to me and say that I don't want to be needy. I don't want to be complaining. I don't want to be, because I've been told this. I've been told I'm too emotional. I've been told I'm fragile. I've been told a lot of stuff. And in fairness to them, maybe they were to some degree, but they're overdoing it. They're overcompensating. Ladies, it's your emotions that stir up a man more than anything else. And not just the fun ones that you like. See, if something's sad in your life and you don't show that you're sad, he's not going to be able to relate to you. That doesn't mean if you're sad, you just fall down and cry all the time and just stop whatever you're doing. But if something sad's happened, it's much more easy to relate to you when you look sad. That makes sense. What's unsettling, what's unnerving is if someone says, describes something that's really sad, and they say, I'm fine, I'm good. See, I don't know what to do with that. Okay, you say you're good, but you just told me your cat died. Or you just said you had to put your dog to sleep, but you're fine. We do that thinking, I don't want to be a whiner. I don't want to be a complainer. And I don't want to be that weak person. But in an attempt not to be weak, but we come across as inauthentic. And folks oftentimes confuse authentic with transparent. So transparent is where we just share whatever we're feeling, say there's no filter. If I don't like someone's hat, like someone with Tourette's, I just, out it comes out. It's awful hat, blanky blank. Terrible hat. Why would you wear that over here? That's not authentic. And that's transparent. That's just having no filter at all. But having the courage to be imperfect, as Alfred Adler called it, is that if I feel sad, I'm sad. It doesn't mean that's who I am. It's just what I'm feeling. And that authenticity, ladies, is what makes you much more endearing to a man, much more than being guarded. In fact, when you are authentic, that's what's much more likely to kick in his hero gene than anything else. That's what stirs up in a man, that his desire to protect, to cherish, to shield, to comfort, all those things. And so some women will say to me, the men I've known are selfish, and they very well may be selfish, or they don't care. If I get to talk with them a little bit, one thing I find is, I have to say it nice to them, is I say, I'm afraid you've given men the wrong impression. You've given these men the impression that you're stronger and tougher than you really are. When you never complain, or you're never weak, or you never have a bad day, he just assumes that's the norm. It's not the norm. You can't keep that up. Then we get into a relationship and something happens. You're overwhelmed, scared, and he's blindsided. Why are you doing this? Why are you complaining? Because what he's seeing is you don't complain. You don't get upset. You don't point out anything that he doesn't like. It takes some courage to do this, but the willingness to try is what separates a lot of times from a really intimate relationship versus a safe relationship or stagnant or even dying relationship. Fourth one is what something is missing. Let's look two places. Is he a man with purpose? Men, I got this from Brian Ward, is great with men. Men were meant to be kings. And I don't mean kings like a dictator, not someone that rules over someone. It's not even meant in terms of everyone is subject to me. What kings do is they create. They have a purpose, a passion. Whether it's writing that book you haven't written, some project, a man without a purpose is a lost man. I mean, there are seasons where we don't have it, but a man without a purpose, when you're around them, you can tell it's like a weight. And this is not to fuss at everyone that's not creating the next big skyscraper or has a huge portfolio. It doesn't matter what the purpose is. But when a man has a purpose, there's a fire that's lit inside. And one of the ways we can tell if a man has a purpose or if he's living with one, or if, more specifically, if he's willing to follow it, is what does he do when things are unfair? Your job, ladies, is not to make things perfectly fair for him. Your job is not to remove all problems where it's perfectly calm all the time. One, you can't keep that up. But the other, you're robbing yourself the ability to see what kind of man he is, or more specifically, where he's at. That purpose is something, once you know it, you can breathe life into. You can encourage. Remember, we want to reward things that you like. We want to detach from things you don't. Notice there's no teaching involved in this. There's no suggesting. There's no demanding. I mean, unless it's like life or death. If you drink and drive, I will call the police. That's a pretty good demand. Number two is with this, are you being authentic with him? In other words, when we alluded to this before, are your words and your emotions matching up? It's not that I need someone to cry when they're sad. Whether you cry or don't cry, it's not that important. What I find often is, men do this too, is the main thing to watch for is sometimes people will say, they'll say something and then they'll laugh. They'll say, yeah, I lost my job yesterday. And okay, I guess it's funny. It doesn't sound funny. If I'm talking with a client with this, one do as an example, is I'll say, imagine if I said to you, my mom died yesterday. See, it doesn't fit. What you hear and what you see are incongruent. And see, that's not being authentic. Usually people do this because, again, I don't want to come across being weak or needy, or I don't want to have you think less of me. And that need to hide behind that prevents a man from seeing who you really are. It's not so much convincing a man, this is the guy that I'm going to make him love me, whatever. We want a man that's a good fit for you. So therefore, I need him to see you for who you are. So we don't need to change you. The change is more about not hiding and pretending to be someone that you're not. That alone creates desire. When it's a good fit, and then I don't believe there's just one person in the world, but when it's a good fit, desire happens naturally. All right, so after today, be on the lookout for our next offering. It's going to be 6 weeks to secure man. And this has been a few years since we offered this, but we're going to find out who your ideal fit is. We've got a little spreadsheet that's kind of fun to do, and about preparing to meet him. And if you're not a member, join us in the Women Men Adore Club. Women Men Adore group or club. And find our Facebook group. Check us out at relationshipheadquarters.com. And I'll look forward to seeing you next Wednesday.